Picture a world where time doesn't flow in a straight line, where the past, present, and future exist all at once. A place where the land itself pulses with the echoes of creation. This is the Aboriginal Dreamtime, the heart of one of the oldest living cultures on Earth. For over 60,000 years, the Indigenous peoples of Australia have carried these stories, not just as myths, but as sacred truths woven into the very fabric of existence. Dreamtime isn't just a collection of tales. It's a living, breathing connection to the land, the ancestors, and the unseen forces that shape reality. And hidden within these ancient narratives are some of the most astonishing, enigmatic legends you've ever heard. Imagine standing beneath a sky so vast it feels like eternity, listening to the whispers of the wind as it carries the voices of ancestral beings. Giant serpents that carved rivers with their bodies, creator spirits who shaped mountains with their hands, and tricksters whose mischief still lingers in the shadows. These stories aren't just folklore, they're maps of the soul, guiding generations through the mysteries of life, death, and the cosmos. But some of these legends defy explanation, tales so strange, so hauntingly vivid, they blur the line between myth and something far deeper. What if these stories hold fragments of forgotten history, or glimpses into realms beyond our understanding? Today, we're diving into 25 of the most extraordinary legends from the Dreamtime, each one a doorway into a world where the impossible feels tangible. From shape-shifting beings who walk between worlds to celestial events that change the land forever, these stories will challenge what you think you know about ancient wisdom. Some will leave you in awe, others might send a shiver down your spine, but one thing's certain, by the end you'll see the world and the Dreamtime in a whole new light. So settle in, because this journey isn't just about hearing legends, it's about stepping into them. Long before the first humans walked the earth, when the world was still soft and unshaped, the Rainbow Serpent awoke from beneath the ground. This colossal being, part snake, part spirit, slithered across the barren land, its powerful body carving valleys where it moved and pushing up mountains where it rested. Wherever it traveled, water followed, filling the grooves of its path with rivers and lakes. With each flick of its shimmering scales, rainbows arched across the sky, painting the first colors into existence. This isn't just a creation story, it's a living memory held by countless Aboriginal nations, each adding their own brushstrokes to the tale. To the Unveil people of Arnhem Land, the serpent is called unveil, a creator and destroyer who demands respect. Fish too close to its sacred pools, and it might drag you under, yet offer the right ceremonies, and it blesses the land with monsoonal rains. Down in the deserts, the Pitjantjatjara tell of Wanambai, a fiery serpent who dwells in waterholes, its breath-stirring whirlwinds when angered. And along the eastern coasts, the Rainbow Serpent takes the form of Dakan or Gorialla, shaping not just the land but the very laws that bind communities together. These aren't contradictions, they're echoes of a truth too vast for one telling. What chills the spine is how these stories mirror the land itself. The serpent's winding paths match ancient river systems visible from the sky. In some tales, it swallows people whole. Geologists note how limestone caves carved by water eerily resemble serpentine jaws. Even modern artists painting the serpent today describe visions that match ancestral rock art stroke for stroke. Is this myth or a coded memory of Australia's violent geological birth? But the serpent isn't just a relic of the past. During droughts, elders still sing its songs to call the rains. When miners threaten sacred sites, protesters invoke its name. This isn't mythology gathering dust, it's a pulse that keeps beating, a reminder that creation never really stopped. The land isn't just land here, it's the serpent's body, and we're walking atop its dreams. High up in the rocky escarpments of Arnhem Land, where the stone itself seems to breathe, there are beings so delicate they vanish when the wind changes direction. These are the Mimi spirits, ethereal figures stretched impossibly thin, taller than trees yet lighter than shadows. Unlike the earth-shaking Rainbow Serpent, the Mimi don't roar or carve landscapes. They move through cracks in the cliffs, dancing just beyond human sight, whispering secrets to those who know how to listen. To the Bininj and Mungai people, the Mimi are both guardians and teachers. Long ago, when humans were still struggling to survive, these spirits took pity on them. They emerged from their rocky hideaways to demonstrate how to hunt kangaroos without startling them, how to find water in the driest seasons, and even how to cook meat for the first time. In one story, a Mimi carefully plucks a single hair from its own body to use as fishing line, proving that resourcefulness outweighs strength. But their lessons came with a warning. The Mimi are fragile, easily angered by loud noises or disrespect. Disturb their homes and they might just lift you into the sky with a gust of wind, leaving you stranded among the clouds. What makes these spirits truly uncanny is how they're frozen in time, literally. Across northern Australia, ancient rock art depicts Mimi figures in red ochre, their elongated limbs stretching across cave walls. Some paintings show them mid-dance, arms arched gracefully. Others capture them teaching humans to spear fish. But here's the eerie part. Many of these artworks are tucked into crevices too narrow for any human artist to reach. Elders say the Mimi themselves painted these images from inside the stone, leaving their stories embedded in the rock like veins of memory. Modern archaeologists have stumbled upon something puzzling. The hunting techniques attributed to the Mimi, like using feather-light spears or tracking marks invisible to the untrained eye, align perfectly with methods later adopted by Aboriginal communities. Were the Mimi purely mythical mentors, or could they represent an ancient cultural memory of early survival innovators? Even today, elders warn children not to linger near certain caves at dusk when the Mimi are most active. Hunters still mimic the precise, soundless footsteps the spirits taught, and artists trace their delicate forms in sand as a sign of respect. The Mimi remind us that wisdom doesn't always come in grand revelations. Sometimes it slips through the cracks, whispered by beings barely thicker than air. Their legacy isn't just in the past, it's in the quiet skills that have kept generations alive, proving that the greatest teachers might be the ones you can almost see, if only you know where to look. Deep in the murky waters of billabongs and swamps, where ripples move against the wind and moonlit reflections twist unnaturally, something waits. The Bunyip, Australia's most feared water-dwelling nightmare, isn't just a monster story. It's a warning passed down through countless generations, a shadow that has shaped how communities interact with waterways for millennia. Descriptions of this creature vary wildly across Aboriginal nations, but one thread ties them all together: an instinctive, bone-deep terror of what lies beneath the surface. Some accounts paint the Bunyip as a hulking, dog-faced beast with dark matted fur and glowing eyes, its roar echoing across still waters like thunder. Others speak of a serpentine horror with scales like jagged rocks, or a feathered abomination with a duck's bill lined with razor-sharp teeth. The Wemba people of New South Wales describe it as a colossal, many-limbed creature that drags its victims into the depths with a grip like twisted roots. No matter its form, the message is clear: stay away from the water's edge at night, or you might not come back. But what's truly fascinating is how these stories might be rooted in something far older than folklore. Paleontologists have noted eerie parallels between Bunyip descriptions and Australia's long-extinct megafauna. The Diprotodon, a rhinoceros-sized marsupial that wallowed in Pleistocene waterways, matches some accounts of the creature's hulking frame. Then there's the pouched predator Thylacoleo, whose bone-crushing jaws align with tales of the Bunyip's lethal bite. Even the flightless demon duck of doom, an actual prehistoric bird with a beak built for tearing flesh, mirrors certain regional variations of the legend. Could these stories be ancestral memories of encounters with creatures that vanished tens of thousands of years ago? The Bunyip's impact lingers in more than just campfire tales. Early European settlers recorded Aboriginal communities avoiding specific waterholes, marking them with stone arrangements or carved trees, ancient hazard signs warning of the creature's territory. When colonists drained swamps in the 1800s, some elders interpreted it as letting the bunyip loose, linking environmental disruption to supernatural consequences. Today, scientists studying Australia's waterways sometimes use the legend as a teaching tool, framing conservation efforts through the lens of respecting the bunyip's domain. This isn't just a story about a monster. It's a testament to how deeply folklore intertwines with survival, ecology, and collective memory. Whether the bunyip was born from extinct giants or the primal fear of dark water, one thing remains certain. When the reeds rustle with no wind and the night goes suddenly silent, even skeptics find themselves stepping back from the shore. In the tangled rainforests of eastern Australia, where sunlight struggles to pierce the canopy, there lurks a creature far more unsettling than any ordinary predator. The Yara-ma-yha-who, who doesn't stalk its prey, it waits patiently, dangling from fig trees like some grotesque fruit, its red skin glistening with a deceptive sheen. This vampiric dwarf, no taller than a child, might seem harmless at first glance with its oversized head and toothless grin. That's exactly how it gets you. According to the traditions of the Kuku-Yalanji and other rainforest peoples, the Yara-ma-yha-who, who hunts in ways that defy nature itself. It doesn't chase, it drops onto unsuspecting passers-by, wrapping its long fingers and toe suckers around their limbs. Then comes the horror. Instead of biting, it drains blood through hollow tubes in its fingertips. But death isn't the end of its cruelty. Victims who survive the initial attack report being forced to swallow the creature whole, only to be regurgitated alive and changed. Some say repeated encounters gradually transform a person into another Yara-ma-yha-who, perpetuating the cycle. This isn't just a monster story, it's a layered warning embedded in culture. Elders recount these tales to children venturing too far into the forest, teaching them to stay close to the group. The creature's preference for fig trees ties directly to real gathering practices. By associating danger with these food sources, the legend subtly reinforces sustainable harvesting. There's even a medicinal parallel: the Yara-ma-yha, whose red hue and swollen belly mirror symptoms of heat stroke, reminding listeners to recognize dehydration's dangers in the humid jungle. Globally, the Yara-ma-yha, who finds eerie counterparts. Japan's vampiric kappa shares its love of water and finger-based bloodletting. Ireland's merrow creatures also use regurgitation as a transformative punishment. But what sets Australia's red demon apart is its role as an ecological teacher. Unlike European vampires representing disease or sexuality, this being is intrinsically tied to land stewardship. Its presence marks specific trees, waterholes, and paths to avoid during certain seasons. Modern researchers note how these taboo zones often overlap with scientifically identified fragile ecosystems or seasonal predator territories. The legend persists today, evolving with new context. In some communities, the Yara-ma-yha, who has become a metaphor for addiction, something that changes you irreversibly through repeated encounters. Urban retellings recast it as a lurking danger in shadowy alleyways. Yet in the rainforest, where ancient trees still bear claw marks said to belong to these creatures, parents whisper the old warnings. Because in a land where the wilderness breathes, some lessons are best learned through stories that raise the hairs on your neck. Out in the vast emptiness of Australia's outback, where the horizon stretches forever and the night swallows sound whole, travelers have reported encounters with something impossible: floating orbs of light that dance just beyond reach. These are the Min lights, named after the tiny, long-abandoned settlement where they were first documented by European settlers. But Aboriginal communities have known of these ghostly manifestations for thousands of years, weaving them into stories that blur the line between natural phenomenon and something far more mysterious. Witnesses describe the lights as shifting spheres, sometimes white, other times glowing amber or green, hovering just above the ground. they appear to follow cars or people before vanishing without a trace. Some accounts claim the lights mimic human movement, stopping when you stop, retreating when you approach. Stockmen in the 1930s swore they camped near lights that kept watch over them all night, only to disappear at dawn. Even modern truckers along the Bunyip highway tell of orbs pacing their rigs for miles like spectral hitchhikers. Science has tried to explain them away: swamp gas, atmospheric refraction, even bioluminescent insects. But the outback doesn't have swamps, and these lights defy predictable patterns. Researchers have noted possible connections to seismic activity or piezoelectric effects from shifting quartz deposits, yet no theory fully explains their intelligence-like behavior. Aboriginal elders, however, offer a different perspective. To the Kalkadoon and other peoples, the lights are spirits of the ancestors, guiding the lost or warning trespassers away from sacred sites. Some traditions say they're the souls of those who perished in the desert, forever searching for water or home. The creepiest accounts come from those who have chased them. Explorers in the 1960s recounted lights leading them miles off course, only to vanish near cliff edges or dried-up wells. A park ranger in the 80s documented a light that seemed to respond to his flashlight signals, flashing back in patterns. Then there are the whispers of missing persons cases, where search parties reported following distant lights that disappeared near crevices or caves. Coincidence or something more unsettling? What makes the Min lights endure isn't just their mystery, it's how they force us to confront the unknown. Scientists deploy night vision cameras and spectral analyzers. Elders recite ancient protocols for safe encounters. Both agree on one thing: the outback holds secrets we're not meant to fully understand. So next time you're on a lonely desert road and a light glows in the distance, remember, some legends aren't just stories. They're alive, flickering at the edges of our world, waiting to be seen. Deep in the mossy caves of Gippsland, where the limestone weeps water like tears, something waits, a being so ancient even the rocks seem to bow in its presence. The Nargun isn't merely a monster, it's a living part of the land itself, its body armored in stone, its spirit woven into the very cliffs it guards. According to the Gun-I/Kurnai people of southeastern Australia, this creature cannot be harmed by spears or boomerangs. Its hide turns weapons aside with the indifference of a mountain weathering storms. But cross into its territory and you'll learn why this legend has endured for thousands of years. Unlike other Dreamtime beings, the Nargun is singular. There's only one, dwelling in a cave behind the waterfall at Mitchell River National Park, a place still avoided by locals after sundown. Its appearance chills the blood, a halting figure half buried in stone, with only glimpses of leathery skin visible between plates of rock. Some say it moves with a grinding sound, like boulders shifting deep underground. Others insist it remains perfectly still until the moment it strikes. What's undisputed is its role as protector. The Nargun doesn't hunt, it punishes, disturbs sacred ground, disrespects ceremonial sites, or take what isn't offered, and you might find its crushing grip dragging you into the earth forever. Geologists have noted something uncanny about the Nargun's home. The cave where it's said to dwell is formed from Devonian limestone rock so old it predates dinosaurs. The weeping walls, natural mineral springs that keep the stone perpetually damp, creating an eerie, living texture. Even the waterfall's acoustics amplify sounds into low, groaning echoes that carry for miles. Could the legend have arisen from early encounters with these disorienting natural phenomena? Or is there something deeper at work, a cultural memory of the land itself enforcing its laws? Modern custodians still leave offerings of ochre and tobacco near the cave, not out of fear but respect. Park rangers quietly mark the area with symbolic warnings rather than physical barriers, honoring both the legend and visitor safety. When wildfires ravaged the region in recent years, elders interpreted the Nargun's survival as a sign of resilience. After all, what fire could burn stone? Today, scientists studying the cave's unique ecosystem sometimes pause when hearing odd reverberations, exchanging glances that acknowledge both data and tradition. The Nargun teaches a lesson few myths dare. Some forces cannot be conquered, only respected. In a world where sacred sites still face destruction, this stone-clad sentinel stands as a timeless reminder. The land has teeth and memory runs deeper than blood. 3 figures emerge from the eastern sea at dawn, 2 women radiating strength, their brother close behind, all carrying something impossible in their hands. These are the Jangawal sisters, creator beings of the Yolngu people, whose pilgrimage across Arnhem Land didn't just shape the earth, it seeded life itself into every rock, tree, and tide pool. Unlike the solitary Nargun or the lurking Bunyip, their story pulses with creation's raw energy, a sacred epic where every step birthed a new tradition, every pause left a spiritual landmark that still resonates today. The sisters named Beruwich and Jangawal walk with their brother Bralbrul, each clutching tall, carved poles called ranga. These aren't mere staffs, they're vessels of sacred power. As they travel, they plunge these poles into the ground, and where they stand, water surges forth, springs that become rivers, pools that become wells. But their most profound act, the sisters carry dilly bags swollen with unborn spirits of future generations. Each time they pause to rest, they unpack these bags, placing spirit children into the landscape. A boulder becomes a totem ancestor, a gum tree's roots cradle future hunters, even islands rise where they shake sand from their feet. This journey wasn't just physical, it was cultural. Wherever the sisters camped, they taught women sacred ceremonies using their ranga poles, dances that reenacted creation itself. Their brother tried to hoard this knowledge, but the sisters outwitted him, ensuring wisdom flowed matrilineally. Today, these very rituals called Jungyuan still unfold in Arnhem Land, passed down through uncounted generations. Participants paint their bodies with the sisters' patterns, chant their footsteps, and handle ceremonial poles said to be direct descendants of the original Ranga. Modern archaeologists note something striking. The sisters' path roughly traces Arnhem Land's most fertile corridors, permanent water sources, protein-rich hunting grounds, and trade routes still used today. Their creation points often coincide with ancient midden sites, suggesting these locations were hubs of early human activity. Is this myth simply mapping resource distribution? Yolngu elders offer a deeper view. The land and law aren't separate. The sisters didn't just find water, they sanctified it, embedding ecological wisdom in story form. Their legacy lives beyond ritual. When mining companies threaten sacred sites, protesters invoke the sisters' journey maps as legal defense. Contemporary artists depict them not as ancient figures but as eternal forces, their Ranga poles morphing into power lines carrying cultural current. Even childbirth ceremonies still reference the dilly bag's generative power. The Jangawal sisters teach us that creation isn't a one-time event. It's an ongoing dance, and every newborn, every monsoon, every ceremony keeps their footsteps fresh on the land. To walk Arnhem Land today is to traverse their living story. The waterholes they tapped still quench thirst. The song lines they left still guide travelers. And when women gather for ceremony under the baking sun, their voices summon something timeless, not memory but presence. The sisters aren't gone. They're waiting in the landscape, whispering through the rattle of leaves, reminding us that to know this place is to step into their footprints over and over again. Here's a segment that might be exactly what you're looking for. Deep in the scorching red heart of Australia, where the earth cracks with thirst, there once lived a frog so greedy he drank the entire world dry. This is Tiktaalik, not a fearsome monster, but an ordinary amphibian whose colossal mistake became one of the Dreamtime's most enduring lessons. According to the Gunai-Kurnai and other Aboriginal nations, this wasn't just a tale of gluttony gone wild. It was a stark warning about imbalance, a story so vital its echoes still ripple through modern conversations about water, greed, and the fragile dance of ecosystems. It began with one very thirsty frog. Tiddalik, small in stature but vast in appetite, woke one morning with an unquenchable thirst. He gulped down creeks, slurped up billabongs, even drained the deepest waterholes until the land cracked under the sun's fury. Animals gasped on dry riverbanks, trees withered, and the earth itself seemed to groan. But here's where the story twists. The solution wasn't force or punishment. It was laughter. The other creatures, echidnas, kookaburras, even the wise old eel gathered to devise a plan. One by one, they performed absurd antics. The kangaroo hopped on one leg, the lizard wiggled its tail comically, until finally, the eel contorted itself into ridiculous shapes. Tiddalik's belly quivered, then erupted with uncontrollable mirth. The moment he laughed, all the water rushed back out, refilling the land in a great, life-giving flood. Beneath the humor lies profound wisdom. Elders recount Tiddalik's tale to children not just as entertainment, but as a map of consequences. His greed mirrors overconsumption, taking more than the land can replenish. The laughter solution, a reminder that sometimes the hardest problems crack open not through conflict but joy and collective cleverness. Modern environmentalists note eerie parallels. The Murray-Darling Basin's water disputes, droughts worsened by over-extraction, even corporate water hoarding all echo Tiddalik's mistake. But just as the animals collaborated, indigenous water management practices like seasonal floodplain harvesting offer sustainable blueprints rooted in this very story. Artists and activists have resurrected Tiddalik in surprising ways. Murals in Melbourne depict him swollen with plastic bottles instead of water. School plays reframe his tale to discuss climate action. During Australia's millennium drought, cartoons showed politicians as Tiddalik hoarding resources while the land suffered. The frog's legacy flexes with the times, yet his core lesson remains. Greed disrupts balance, and restoration requires creativity, not just force. Next time you hear a kookaburra's laugh cascading through the bush, listen closely. It might just be the sound of an ancient truth, that sometimes the weight of the world shifts not with a shout but a chuckle. And in a time of mounting environmental crises, Tiddalik's story whispers a radical question. What if saving the world starts not with austerity, but with learning to laugh together at our own folly? Two sisters trekked through the dripping rainforest, their footsteps muffled by the monsoon's slick leaves, one heavily pregnant, the other guiding her gently through the green gloom. This was no ordinary journey. The Wawalag sisters, ancestors of the Yolngu people, were walking straight into a legend that would forever explain the rhythms of the land itself. Their story isn't just about survival. It's a cosmic drama where human frailty collides with divine power, weaving together monsoons, sacred ceremony, and the ever-watchful Rainbow Serpent in a tale so vivid, you can almost smell the wet earth and hear the thunder rumble. As the sisters settled near a waterhole to rest, the elder gathered yams for their meal, but when she peeled them, her knife slipped. A single drop of blood fell into the sacred pool. That tiny disturbance awoke Yowie, the great rainbow serpent coiled beneath the waters. The ground trembled as the colossal being erupted from the depths, its scales reflecting storm clouds not yet formed. In some versions, the serpent wasn't angry but intrigued, drawn by the sisters' songs and the scent of new life. It encircled their hut with its massive body, trapping them inside with rain so torrential it flooded the entire region. For 3 days, the sisters sang in terror and awe, their voices blending with the downpour until finally, transformed by the ordeal, they were swallowed whole. But this isn't a story of punishment. When Yowie released them, they emerged changed, carrying sacred knowledge that would shape Yolngu spirituality forever. Their songs became the foundation of initiation ceremonies still performed today, where elders reenact the sisters' trial to teach young people about life's sacred cycles. The serpent, it arched into the sky as a double rainbow, promising the annual return of monsoons to replenish the land. Every wet season, when humidity thickens the air and the first thunderheads gather, elders point to those rainbows and say Yule is remembering the sisters, keeping his ancient vow. Modern meteorologists might call it the intertropical convergence zone, but for the Yolngu, the monsoons are Yule's breath, a direct result of that fateful encounter. Rock art across Arnhem Land depicts the sisters alongside the serpent, their stories encoded in crosshatched patterns that mirror the rippling water and lashing rain. Anthropologists note how the legend embeds crucial survival knowledge. The sisters' shelter building, their foraging choices, even their awareness of predator-like danger near waterholes all reflect real-world bushcraft. What chills the spine is how the Wawalag saga defies simple categories. It's a creation story, a meteorological allegory, and a feminist narrative all at once. The sisters aren't passive victims but powerful mediators between humans and the divine. Contemporary artists reimagine them as symbols of resilience, painting them with modern hairstyles or surrounded by climate protest imagery. During initiation rites, elders still trace the sisters' footsteps in sand, teaching that true wisdom often comes through struggle, that the land's fiercest forces can also be its most generous teachers. When the first monsoon winds gust through Arnhem Land today, shaking the trees and darkening the skies, listen closely. Beneath the thunder, you might just hear the echo of two sisters singing, not in fear but in kinship with the storm, reminding us that even the most terrifying deluges carry the promise of renewal. On the mist-cloaked cliffs where Australia's northern forests meet the sea, a figure perches with talons curled into stone, half woman, half monstrous bird, her feathered arms spread wide as if to embrace the sky. This is Kyorangetuku, a being so fearsome she's claimed by both Aboriginal and Maori lore, her story a haunting bridge between cultures. Unlike other Dreamtime beings, she isn't just a predator or a lesson. She's a paradox, a creature of brutal instincts and aching loneliness, whose tale twists love into something sharp enough to draw blood. She hunts like no other. By day, Kyorangetuku soars on leathery wings, snatching fishermen from canoes or plucking lone travelers from jungle paths, but by night she sings. Her voice, echoing through the gullies, is said to mimic the cries of lost children, luring the kind-hearted into her clutches. The Maori describe her iron-taloned hands, capable of shredding bark from trees. Aboriginal stories from the Kimberley whisper of her nest high in the cliffs, woven from bones and sinew. Yet what chills most isn't her violence, it's her longing. In every version of her legend, Kyorangetuku isn't mindless. She watches human villages from afar, coveting their warmth, their laughter, the way lovers touch without fear. The tragedy unfolds when she captures a young man, sometimes a warrior, sometimes a musician, and instead of devouring him, she offers grotesque affection. She brings him freshly killed prey as gifts, trills songs in his language, even grooms his hair with her beak. In some tellings, the man pities her and teaches her human ways. In others, he recoils. But the ending never changes. When he inevitably escapes or betrays her, Kyorangetuku's grief erupts into fury. Her subsequent rampage isn't just hunger, it's the wrath of a heart shattered by its own otherness. Anthropologists trace this legend's cross-cultural roots to ancient trade routes between Aboriginal and Polynesian peoples, where shared fears of the unknown birthed hybrid myths. But modern interpretations see deeper layers. Kyorangetuku's duality, monster and mourner, mirrors the isolation of those caught between worlds, whether mixed heritage individuals or outsiders rejected by both societies. Artists in both Australia and New Zealand have reimagined her as a symbol of misunderstood rage, painting her with human eyes full of sorrow or sculpting her mid-transformation, half her feathers molting to reveal fragile skin beneath. Her legacy lingers in unexpected places. Bird calls at dusk still make children hurry indoors. Fishermen tie red cloth to their boats, an old charm against her attention. And when storms lash the coast, elders say it's not wind howling through the cliffs, but Kurangetu-ku weeping for the love she can never hold. She reminds us that the darkest legends often spring from the simplest wounds, the terror of being alone, and the price of wanting what isn't yours to take. Deep in the tangled rainforests of Australia's eastern coast, where the trees grow so thick they block out the sun, something massive moves in the shadows. The Yowie, Australia's answer to Bigfoot, isn't just some imported legend. This towering, hairy figure has roots stretching back thousands of years in Aboriginal lore, long before European settlers brought their own tales of wilderness giants. But unlike the elusive Sasquatch, the Yowie carries a distinctly Australian flavor, a blend of primal fear, ancient wisdom, and eerie encounters that continue to unsettle hikers and researchers alike. Aboriginal stories describe the Yowie by many names: Doolagol to the Gundungurra people, Jurawara to the Yuwallaroi, but the core details remain hauntingly consistent. These aren't just large, hairy creatures, they're deeply tied to the land's spiritual fabric. Some legends paint them as protectors of sacred sites, punishing those who disrespect ceremonial grounds. Others warn of their terrifying strength, recounting how they can uproot trees or hurl boulders with ease. The Kuku-Yalanji people of Queensland tell of a Yowie like being called Quinkin, a nocturnal hunter that stalks the unaware, its breath reeking of rotting meat. What sets these accounts apart from Bigfoot lore is the Yowie's unsettling intelligence. Many Aboriginal stories describe them mimicking human speech, luring victims with cries for help or fragments of familiar songs. Modern sightings add layers to the mystery. Loggers in the Blue Mountains swear they've heard guttural growls echoing through valleys far deeper than any known animal. Campers report waking to find massive, human-like footprints circling their tents, some measuring over 18 inches long. In 1977, a NSW schoolteacher named Alan Tristram claimed to have filmed a Yowie near Kangaroo Valley, capturing a hulking, dark figure moving through the brush. Though the footage remains controversial, it sparked a wave of interest that continues today. Cryptozoologists note peculiar details recurring in reports: a sulfur-like stench, glowing red eyes, and an uncanny ability to vanish without a trace, as if the forest itself swallows them whole. What fascinates researchers is how these modern accounts mirror ancient descriptions. Aboriginal rock art in New South Wales depicts hairy, bipedal figures towering over hunters, their elongated arms and exaggerated features matching contemporary Yowie reports. Even the creature's avoidance of open spaces aligns with Dreamtime stories warning against venturing too deep into certain gullies or caves. Some anthropologists suggest the Yowie could be a cultural memory of Gigantopithecus, a massive prehistoric ape whose fossils have been found across Asia. Others propose it's a symbolic representation of nature's untamed power, a reminder that some parts of the wilderness were never meant to be conquered. The Yowie's place in modern cryptozoology is as contentious as it is compelling. While Bigfoot hunters deploy trail cams and audio recorders in North America, Australian researchers face a unique challenge. The Yowie's habitat overlaps with known megafauna like kangaroos and wombats, making physical evidence harder to distinguish. Yet the legend persists, evolving with the times. During World War II, soldiers stationed in Queensland reported eerie howls from the bush, jokingly blaming the Yowie for stolen rations. Today, some Indigenous communities use the creature as an ecotourism draw, offering guided Yowie walks that blend folklore with forest conservation. Whether the Yowie is flesh and blood or something more metaphysical, its power lies in the questions it forces us to confront. In a land as ancient as Australia, where the line between myth and history often blurs, maybe some mysteries aren't meant to be solved. They're meant to keep us looking over our shoulders, wondering what else might be watching from the shadows. In the sweltering wetlands of northern Australia, where mangroves twist like gnarled fingers and the air hums with unseen forces, the Namarodo move unseen. These aren't just spirits, they're spectral assassins, invisible to all but the most seasoned elders, armed with a hunger for human suffering. Unlike the Bunyip's brute strength or the Yowi's physical presence, the Namorodo strike without warning, their attacks feeling like sudden fevers, crippling aches, or worse. To the Yolngu and other clans of Arnhem Land, they're the answer to inexplicable illnesses, the hidden hands behind misfortunes that medicine can't explain. Their methods are as chilling as they are precise. Namorodo slip into camps as gusts of wind, their forms shifting between mist and shadow. Victims report feeling icy fingers brush their skin before agony erupts, joints locking like rusted hinges, muscles seizing as if threaded with hot wire. Some say the spirits carry tiny, invisible spears tipped with poison. Others believe they simply whisper curses into the blood. But one detail remains consistent across all accounts: the Namorodo never act alone. They hunt in packs, swarming their targets like piranhas of the spiritual realm, amplifying pain through sheer numbers. Protection against them requires more than physical barriers. Elders teach that the Namorodo despise the scent of certain plants, crushed sandalwood rubbed on the skin, smoking bundles of gum leaves hung in doorways. Ceremonial body paint, infused with ochre and ash, acts as a kind of armor, its patterns disrupting the spirit's vision. Most crucially, there's the Makarata, a ritual where accused sorcerers, often blamed for summoning Namorodo, are speared in the legs as both punishment and deterrent. The logic is stark: if human malice attracts these spirits, then justice must be public and visceral. Anthropologists have noted eerie correlations between Namorodo attacks and real-world health crises. During the 1950s, when influenza swept through Arnhem Land, elders identified the illness as a Namorodo wind, interpreting germ theory through a spiritual lens. Modern healers sometimes blend these traditions, using antibiotics alongside smoke ceremonies, acknowledging both microscopic and supernatural threats. Even the notion of invisible weapons finds parallels in Western medicine. Autoimmune disorders, where the body attacks itself, mirror the Namorodo's self-inflicted torment. Yet the spirit's legacy isn't just fear. They're a reminder of balance. Taboos around greed, jealousy, or broken promises exist partly to avoid attracting their attention. When disputes simmer too long, elders warn that unresolved anger is feeding the Namorodo, turning emotional wounds into physical ones. In this way, the spirits enforce community harmony, their spectral presence a deterrent against hidden malice. Today, you might see their influence in unexpected places. Nurses in remote clinics learn to recognize when patients request both painkillers and a smoking ceremony. Artists depict the Namorodo as swirling black dots in acrylic paintings, their forms hovering at the edges of vibrant dreamscapes. And when a sudden ache flares in the night, even the most skeptical might catch themselves listening for the rustle of leaves, wondering if something unseen just passed by, leaving only pain in its wake. While Tiddalick's tale echoes across the desert, another serpent moves through the waters of Arnhem Land, one whose power births life rather than drought. Julungal isn't just another rainbow serpent. She is the mother of rivers, the pulse of menstrual blood made divine, a being so sacred her name is whispered only during women's ceremonies. Where male counterparts like Yulunga bring storms, Julungal governs the quiet, cyclical magic of creation. The swell of pregnancy, the rush of waterfalls, even the rhythmic tides that shape coastlines. Her story reveals how Dreamtime mythology intertwines ecology, femininity, and sacred knowledge in ways Western traditions rarely approach. To the Yolngu and neighboring clans, Julungal's presence is felt most powerfully during initiation rites for young women. When girls enter womanhood, elders reenact the serpent's journey through dance, their bodies painted with her diamond scale patterns, their voices rising in songs that mimic the hiss of water through reeds. The ceremonies aren't mere symbolism, they're a transfer of power. Julungal's spirit is said to literally enter participants, linking them to ancestral wisdom about fertility, healing, and the land's subtle rhythms. Anthropologists have documented how these rituals align with natural cycles. Ceremonies often coincide with wet season arrivals or specific lunar phases, embedding environmental awareness into spiritual practice. Her myths are as fluid as the waters she commands. In ONE, Chinese letter, 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 Julungal takes human form to teach women how to find underground springs by listening for the song of water beneath the earth. Another describes her coiling around a sacred rock at the bottom of a waterhole, her body absorbing the mineral essence that later appears in ochre used for menstrual ceremony paint. Most striking is her duality. She's both nurturer and destroyer. Floods that nourish the land also drown the unwary. Her waters cleanse but can swallow secrets forever. This balance mirrors Indigenous views of femininity itself, life-giving but fiercely protective, gentle yet unyielding. Modern science adds an eerie layer to her lore. The waterhole's Julungal is associated with often harbor unique ecosystems, breeding grounds for rare fish or migratory birds. Her diamond scales, they match the prismatic sheen of certain freshwater mussels, whose shells were historically ground into fertility medicines. Even the serpent's connection to menstrual cycles finds resonance in research showing how lunar tides subtly influence groundwater levels in Arnhem Land. Elders nod when hearing such studies, remarking that science is finally catching up to what songlines have always held. Julungal's legacy thrives beyond ceremony. During Australia's fight against fracking in the Northern Territory, women protesters carried banners painted with her image, framing environmental defense as an extension of her protective role. Contemporary artists depict her as both ancient and eternal. One painting shows her scales morphing into DNA strands, another as a river merging with veins in a pregnant woman's belly. She's become a symbol of Indigenous feminism, reminding the world that sacred feminine power isn't just about creation, it's about sovereignty over the body, the land, and the stories that bind them together. When the monsoons come, swelling the rivers Julungal is said to inhabit, elders watch for her signs. An unusually patterned rainbow, a sudden eddy in calm waters. Her presence isn't confined to myth. It's in the sweat on a midwife's brow, the coolness of a rock pool at dawn, the quiet strength of women gathering to sing the world into balance once more. When night falls across the Western Australian deserts and the temperature plummets, parents pull their children closer to the fire, not just for warmth, but as a silent precaution against the melange. This skeletal, long-limbed horror isn't your typical boogeyman. With sunken eyes that gleam like polished stones and fingers that stretch unnaturally far, the melange doesn't just lurk in shadows, it becomes them. Among the Noongar and Yamatji peoples, its name is spoken carefully, often replaced with euphemisms like "that night traveler" to avoid attracting its attention. Because unlike European monsters that simply scare children into obedience, the melange has a far more sinister specialty. It doesn't just warn, it steals. The rules for avoiding it are precise. Never let a child wander alone after dusk, especially near granite outcrops where the melange is said to nest. Its hunting method is chillingly methodical first. It mimics the sound of a crying infant or a wounded animal to lure the curious. Then, if you meet its gaze, paralysis sets in, leaving victims helpless as it drags them into the darkness. Survivors, or more accurately, those who escape before being taken, describe an odor like rotting paperbark and a touch colder than desert winter. But what truly chills the blood are the traces it leaves behind. Tiny handprints in ash circles, or worse, small bundles of twigs tied with human hair found near deserted campsites. Anthropologists have noted eerie parallels between the melange and other global child-snatching legends. Malaysia's Pontianak shares its predatory fondness for infant cries, while Scotland's Slewog spirits also target the vulnerable. Yet the melange stands apart through its deep ecological ties. Its supposed lairs, caves, or hollowed-out salmon gums often double as actual repositories of ancient burials or ochre mines, making the legend a cultural safeguard against disturbing sacred sites. Modern rangers in places like Pinnacle's desert quietly acknowledge these taboo zones, posting warnings that blend park safety with traditional lore. The Malangi's influence lingers in unexpected ways. Pediatricians in Perth report Aboriginal parents insisting on hospital beds facing away from windows at night. Contemporary artists depict it not as a mere monster, but as a manifestation of ecological grief, its emaciated frame symbolizing the theft of cultural knowledge when children are removed from country. During the Stolen Generations era, some elders whispered that the real Malangi wasn't a spirit at all, but the uniformed men who came in darkness. Tonight, as the Southern Cross rises over the outback, listen closely. That rustle in the spinifex might just be the wind or the sound of something far older and hungrier, reminding us that some stories exist not just to frighten, but to make sure the next generation stays safely within the firelight's glow. The land where Perth now stands was once soft clay, waiting to be shaped until the Wadjal awoke. This colossal serpent being of the Noongar people didn't just carve the rivers and valleys of Australia's southwest. It breathed life into the very laws that govern the land and its people. Unlike the Rainbow Serpent's vast continental reach, the Wadjal's domain is intimately local, its coils tracing every freshwater spring, granite outcrop, and ancient songline between the Indian Ocean and the great southern woodlands. To understand this being is to understand why certain boulders must never be climbed, why particular pools stay untouched even in drought, and how a modern city somehow grew around sacred sites without erasing them. As the Wadjal slithered across the landscape, its body did more than mold the earth. It became the earth, where its belly dragged the Swan and Canning rivers unfurled like liquid mirrors. Its resting places became hills now topped with suburban homes, though elders still whisper that disturbing the soil there risks waking its dreams. The serpent's glittering scales scattered as quartz crystals now sought by gem hunters, while its spittle hardened into the glassy zamia seeds that sustain Noongar families during lean seasons. Even its creative power carried duality. After shaping the land, it circled back to instill Kanirnin, the Noongar kinship system binding humans to each other and to every rock, tree, and creature the Wadjal had birthed. Modern geologists have mapped something uncanny. The serpents described path aligns with fault lines and aquifers that feed Perth's water supply, those sacred untouchable pools. They're often biodiversity hotspots sheltering rare freshwater mollusks. The granite outcrops where the Wadjal is said to sleep contain some of the oldest minerals on Earth, dating back over 2 billion years. Coincidence? Noongar custodians smile at the question. To them, the Wadjal didn't just mirror natural processes. It encoded ecological wisdom in story form, ensuring survival long before the word science existed. Today, the Wadjal's presence is both subtle and undeniable. Construction projects in Perth still consult elders to avoid disturbing its resting places. Highway expansions have detoured around ancient trees marked with traditional ochre, their roots said to tap into the serpent's veins. At the Elizabeth Quay waterfront, a shimmering public art installation traces the Wadjal's path in stainless steel, not as a relic but as a living signature. When the Durbal Yerrigan Swan River floods after winter rains, elders watch the currents for patterns that reveal the Wadjal's mood, reminding settlers that this land was never truly tamed. Perhaps the most profound testament to its power lies in Noongar oral histories. While other cultures speak of creator beings in the past tense, stories about the Wadjal use present language, not "it made the rivers," but "it makes the rivers." Because in the end, this isn't just a legend about how the land was formed. It's a reminder that creation never stopped and that every raindrop joining the Swan still follows paths laid down by something far older than memory. Where the monsoons rage fiercest across northern Australia, two primordial forces clash in an endless battle that shakes the earth and splits the sky. The Galaroo, another mighty rainbow serpent, wages war against Kanapipi, the great mother goddess, their cosmic struggle etched into the land itself. This isn't just a tale of rivalry, it's a living explanation for the violent storms, sudden floods, and even the secret rituals that define life in Arnhem Land. Unlike the creative Julungal or the world-shaping Wajil, the Galaroo embodies raw, untamed power, a serpent so vast its thrashing tail churns ocean currents and its furious breaths become cyclones. The conflict began when Kanapipi, the life-giving mother of all spirits, tried to teach sacred ceremonies to her people. The Galaroo, enraged by this sharing of power, attacked her with terrifying force. In some tellings, it swallowed Kanapipi whole, only for her to carve her way free with ritual knives, spilling blood that became the first red ochre. Other versions describe their battles as seasonal. Kanapipi retreats underground during the wet season while the Galaroo floods the land, only to be driven back when she returns with the sun. The scars of their fights are everywhere. Lightning flashes when their weapons collide, thunder echoes their roars, and the saltwater estuaries of the north still run brackish where the Galaroo's venom mixed with Kanapipi's tears. What makes these stories more than myth is how they map onto real environmental cycles. The Kanapipi ceremonies, still performed today, always coincide with the build-up to monsoon season, a symbolic reenactment of her struggle to restrain the Galaroo's fury. Elders point to specific rock formations as the serpent's fangs or Kanapipi's grinding stones, turning geology into a divine battlefield. Even the torrential rains take on new meaning. They're not just weather but the remnants of the Galaroo's wrath, neutralized by Kanapipi's enduring presence. Modern meteorologists have noted something uncanny. The most violent storms in the region often follow paths matching the serpent's legendary routes, with cyclone hotspots overlapping sacred sites tied to the tails. When floods devastate coastal communities, elders speak of the Galaroo stirring anew, while clear skies signal Kanapipi's temporary victory. This duality reflects a profound truth: the same forces that bring destruction also renew the land, flushing nutrients through river systems and clearing old growth for new life. The legacy of this eternal fight lives beyond ceremony. During World War II, Aboriginal soldiers serving in the Pacific Theatre whispered that the bombs were Galaroo's work, while Kanapipi's spirit guided them home. Today, climate activists invoke their struggle to explain rising sea levels, framing the serpent's resurgence as nature's answer to human recklessness. Artists depict them locked in combat across canvases, their battle lines mirroring satellite images of storm fronts. Stand on the cliffs of Arnhem Land during a thunderstorm, and you might just feel it: the electric charge of something far older than science, a rivalry written into the wind and water. The Galaroo and Kanapipi aren't gone. They're in every raindrop that pounds the earth, every flash of lightning that splits the sky, reminding us that creation and destruction are two sides of the same sacred coin. A whisper of bone against skin, that's all it takes for the Kadacha man to mark his next victim. This isn't just any sorcerer from Aboriginal lore. He's the embodiment of divine justice, a spectral enforcer whose curses don't just linger in the realm of myth, they manifest in tangible, terrifying ways. Known among the Arrant and other Central Desert peoples, the Kadacha man operates unlike any other Dreamtime being. He doesn't roar like the Bunyip or slither like the Rainbow Serpent. His power is quiet, precise, and rooted in a practice so psychologically potent it's been studied by modern scientists: bone pointing. The ritual is as chilling as it is simple. A Kadacha man, often an elder chosen to uphold tribal law, carves a sharpened bone or stick, infusing it with ancestral power. Then, with ceremonial precision, he points it at the offender while chanting their name. No physical touch is needed. The curse travels through the air like invisible radiation, carrying with it the weight of broken taboos. Victims report an immediate, visceral reaction, a coldness in the chest, a sudden dizziness, as if their very soul has been grazed. From that moment, the clock starts ticking. Without intervention, the cursed wither away, their bodies failing inexplicably despite no visible injury. Autopsies on those who succumbed reveal no toxins or trauma, just organs that seem to give up. But here's where legend collides with unsettling reality. Anthropologists documented cases in the 20th century where Aboriginal individuals exposed to bone pointing died within days or weeks, despite having no prior illness. Medical professionals coined the term voodoo death to describe this phenomenon, linking it to extreme psychological stress triggering catastrophic physical shutdowns. The body, convinced of its impending doom, essentially surrenders. Conversely, when a curse was lifted through counter-rituals or the Kaditcha man's pardon, recovery could be just as swift. Modern psychology recognizes this as the nocebo effect, where negative beliefs manifest real symptoms, but traditional custodians argue it's deeper, proof that the mind and spirit are inextricably tied to the land's unseen forces. The Kaditcha man's role isn't arbitrary terror, it's a cultural failsafe. His curses historically targeted those who violated sacred laws, desecrators of ceremonial sites, repeat offenders of kinship taboos, or those who harmed children. In a society without prisons, bone pointing was the ultimate deterrent. Even colonial authorities in the 1800s noted how accusations of Kaditcha involvement could halt tribal conflicts instantly, with both sides retreating to avoid attracting his attention. Today, elders caution that the practice isn't extinct, it's evolved. Artists depict the Kaditcha man in acrylic paintings as a silhouette with hollow eyes, holding not just bones but modern symbols like syringes or smartphones, reflecting anxieties around new societal poisons. What lingers most isn't fear, but the profound questions this legend forces upon us. Can belief alone kill? Can a ritual honed over 60,000 years hold scientific weight? The answers might lie somewhere between neurology and the numinous, in the space where culture writes itself upon the body, and the oldest stories remind us that some laws transcend the physical. When the wind howls across the desert at night, some say it carries the sound of the Kaditcha man sharpening his bones, a whisper that never quite fades, not because it seeks victims, but because it ensures we never forget the price of breaking the world's oldest rules. Deep in the mangrove swamps of northern Australia, where the air hangs thick with the scent of salt and decay, the Mokoi moves unseen. This is no ordinary spirit, it's a shape-shifting embodiment of pure malice, a sorcerer of the shadows who wields magic not for creation but for twisted, deliberate harm. Among the Yolngu and other coastal clans, its name is spoken in hushed tones, often replaced with phrases like "that bad one" or "the night walker" to avoid summoning its attention. What sets the Mokoi apart from other Dreamtime beings isn't its appearance. It can take any form, from a hunched old man to a shimmering mist, but its singular purpose: to poison, to curse, to unravel lives thread by thread. The Mokoi's methods are as varied as they are cruel. Some say it slips into camps as a familiar face, offering food laced with invisible toxins that bring wasting sickness. Others describe it stealing hair or footprints to work sympathetic magic from afar, tying knots in strands of human hair to induce crippling pain. Most chilling are accounts of its ability to sing victims to death, chanting curses so potent they make organs wither from the inside out. But the Mokoi doesn't kill quickly. It savors suffering like a connoisseur, drawing out illnesses for weeks, ensuring entire communities feel the ripple effects of its hatred. Fighting back requires more than weapons, it demands spiritual expertise. Enter the Mangjich, traditional healers trained to detect and counter the Mokoi's dark arts. Their rituals are precise survival science disguised as ceremony. When someone falls mysteriously ill, the Mangjich might burn specific mangrove leaves, their acrid smoke revealing invisible curses as shimmering threads in the air. Then comes the counter-singing complex healing chants whose vibrations disrupt the Mokoi's spells. Some healers use intricately carved spirit sticks to spear the malignant magic out of a patient's body, while others prepare protective amulets stuffed with crushed shellfish and ironwood, materials the Mokoi supposedly cannot cross. Modern medicine has recorded baffling cases that mirror Mokoi attack sudden paralysis with no neurological cause, wasting syndromes that defy diagnosis. In some remote clinics, doctors work alongside Mangjich, recognizing that certain conditions respond only to a blend of antibiotics and smoke cleansing. Psychologists note how the Mokoi legend functions as an early warning system. When social tensions rise, so do reports of its activity, pushing communities to address hidden conflicts before they fester. Yet the Mokoi's real power lies in what it teaches about balance. For every destructive force in the Dreamtime, there exists a counterforce, not good versus evil in the Western sense, but chaos met with order, poison met with antidote. Contemporary artists paint the Mokoi not as a monster, but as a necessary shadow, its presence reminding people to value their healers, uphold community bonds, and never take spiritual health for granted. When the tide rolls out over the mangroves at dusk, leaving silence in its wake, elders say that's the sound of the Mokoi listening, and the Mangjich ready to answer. When the earth cracked beneath a merciless sun, and even the hardiest desert oaks withered, the land cried out, and from its depths rose Dilga, the earth mother whose sorrow birthed rivers. This isn't just a tale of drought and deliverance, it's a living parable of how grief, when allowed to flow, can become the source of renewal. Among the Pitjantjatjara and Yankunytjatjara peoples of Central Australia, Dilga's legend is more than mythology. It's a survival guide etched into the very contours of the desert, teaching that even the deepest wounds can water new life. The story begins with catastrophe. A great drought sparked by the misdeeds of greedy men who hoarded water left the land barren. Animals collapsed in their tracks, children's throats turned to dust, and the sky itself seemed to turn away. But Dilga, a primordial being as vast as the continent, refused to let creation perish. Lying beneath the cracked earth, she began to weep. Her tears, warm as blood and endless as time, seeped upward through the soil, pooling in hollows, carving channels where none existed. Where each drop fell, a spring bubbled forth. Where her sobs shook the ground, great aquifers ruptured to the surface. The land drank deeply, and within days, seeds dormant for decades split open, painting the red desert with sudden green. What makes Dilga's story extraordinary is how it intertwines with real desert ecology. The places her tears supposedly fell, Dalhousie Springs, the Fink River, are actual desert oases where water rises miraculously from below, defying the arid landscape. Modern hydrologists confirm these are part of the Great Artesian Basin, a vast underground reservoir that sustains life in Australia's interior. The legend even encodes practical wisdom. Elders still teach that digging too greedily for water risks waking Dilga's anger, a warning against over-extraction that mirrors modern conservation principles. Dilga's legacy thrives in unexpected ways. During Australia's millennium drought, Aboriginal artists depicted her as a contemporary figure, her body shaped like parched farmland, her tears mingling with the bottled water donated to remote communities. When rains finally came, elders in Alice Springs performed ceremonies thanking Dilga alongside meteorologists' weather reports, blending ancient and modern understandings of renewal. Even the concept of living water in desert culture's water imbued with spiritual vitality echoes her enduring presence, but perhaps the most profound lesson lies in how the story frames suffering. Unlike Western narratives where tears signify weakness, Dilga's grief is transformative. Her weeping isn't defeat, it's an act of sacred alchemy, turning pain into sustenance. Contemporary mental health workers in Indigenous communities sometimes reference her when discussing trauma recovery, framing emotional release not as collapse but as the first step toward regrowth. Stand by a desert waterhole after the rains, and you might catch a glimpse of her still, not as some vanished deity, but in the way the water shimmers with hidden depths, in the way life clings stubbornly to even the harshest places. The land remembers, it always does, and when the next drought comes, as it inevitably will, the children will be told again. Even the earth cries sometimes. And from those tears, rivers are born. High above the monsoon clouds, where the stars burn with icy clarity, the Maralang once descended twin beings of celestial light and shadow, forever bound yet eternally opposed. These weren't just spirits from Aboriginal lore, they were walking paradoxes, embodiments of the universe's fundamental tensions. To the Yolngu people of Arnhem Land, their arrival marked the moment humanity first grappled with a truth as old as time itself. No force exists without its counterbalance, no light without dark, no creation without destruction. One brother, Bayomi, shone like the morning sun, his voice brought forth songbirds. His footsteps sprouted medicinal plants, and his laughter could heal wounds with a single note. His twin, Nargun, moved differently. Where Bayomi brought warmth, Nargun carried the crispness of night air. Where Bayomi fostered community, Nargun prized solitude, teaching the art of introspection. Their conflicts weren't battles of good versus evil, but necessary friction like fire against flint, sparking wisdom from collision. Elders recount how their most famous quarrel birthed the first didgeridoo. Bayomi's breath filled it with resonant tones, while Nargun's rhythmic strikes created the instrument's haunting pulse. Together, they taught that harmony isn't the absence of tension, but the art of weaving opposites into something greater. This duality manifests in unexpected ways. Bayomi's sacred sites are open gathering spaces near waterholes where ceremonies celebrate abundance. Nargun's caves and high cliffs where initiates undergo solitary vision quests. Modern psychologists note how these traditions mirror healthy human development, the need for both social connection and self-discovery. Even their celestial symbols persist. Bayomi is linked to Venus as the morning star, Nargun to its evening counterpart. Astronomers might see one planet in two phases, but the Maralang stories remind us that perspective defines reality. Their lessons echo beyond ritual. During seasonal monsoons, elders point to the interplay of scorching sun and drenching rains as the twins' eternal dance. Contemporary artists depict them as intertwined figures in acrylic paintings, one painted with warm ochres, the other in cool blues, their bodies forming yin-yang-like circles. When disputes arise in communities, mediators invoke the Maralang principle. Resolutions shouldn't erase differences, but align them like currents in a shared river. Perhaps the most profound testament to their legacy lies in the Yolngu kinship system, where every person is born into one of two moieties, Juwa or Yara-ma-yha, mirroring the twins' divide. Marrying across these groups isn't just allowed, it's essential, ensuring society embodies the same equilibrium the Maralang exemplified. To walk Arnhem Land today is to witness their living balance, in the way laughter rings through camps at dusk, only to settle into respectful silence when the stars emerge, each moment holding its counterweight, each breath a reminder that wholeness requires both light and shadow. When night falls across the rocky escarpments of Arnhem Land, not all shadows belong to the living. Among them glides the Garkane, a creature of such unnatural hunger that even speaking its name after sundown is considered dangerous. Part human, part monstrous bat, this being stalks the darkness with membranous wings that whisper against the rocks, its thirst rooted not in legend but in something far more visceral. Unlike the Bunyip's brute strength or the Mokoi's magical malice, the Garkane terrifies because it mirrors our most primal fear, the violation of the body itself, the slow drain of life by something that was once like us. Eyewitness accounts passed down through generations describe encounters that curl the blood. The Garkane doesn't simply attack, it mesmerizes. Its high-pitched screech paralyzes victims, leaving them conscious but unable to move as it descends, folding leathery wings around them like a living shroud. Then comes the bite, not the fanged Hollywood cliché, but a precise incision at the neck or inner thigh where the blood flows warmest. Survivors, few as they are, report waking at dawn, weak and disoriented, with twin puncture wounds that refuse to heal and an unshakable sense of being followed. Elders warn that the Garcane doesn't just take blood, it siphons something intangible, a piece of the victim's vitality that never fully returns. What chills the spine is how these stories parallel vampire myths from continents the Yolngu people had no contact with. The Garcane's aversion to sunlight mirrors Eastern European lore. Its need for invitation, some say it can't enter a hut unless the occupant has spoken its name aloud, recalls the Slavic vampire's reliance on permission. Even the bat motif appears in Mesoamerican folklore, where the Camazotz deity shares the Garcane's winged ferocity. Anthropologists debate whether these similarities hint at ancient cultural exchange or something deeper. A shared human horror of predation by something almost human, a fear etched into our collective unconscious. Modern encounters add unsettling layers. In the 1970s, a park ranger in Kakodu reported a giant bat-like figure trailing his Land Rover at night, keeping pace at nearly 40 kilometers per hour. Aboriginal trackers assisting missing persons searchers have occasionally refused to enter caves at dusk, citing Garcane nesting grounds. Even skeptics pause when hearing how these sites often contain colonies of ghost bats, real, large-eared predators whose silhouettes at twilight match traditional descriptions unnervingly well. The Garcane's legacy thrives in razor-sharp warnings. Parents still hang coiled fishing nets over cribs, their webs mimicking the protective patterns elders say confuse the creature. Healers brew tonics from ironwood bark, a folk remedy believed to restore the stolen strength of victims. And when tourists joke about vampire hunts, custodians quietly redirect them, not out of superstition but respect for the truth nestled in the tale, that darkness in any culture has teeth. Perhaps the most haunting lesson lies in the Garcane's origin stories. Unlike European vampires born from curses or unholy magic, the Garcane was once human. It became what it is through transgression, breaking sacred taboos, consuming forbidden blood, severing ties to kinship. In this light, the legend isn't just a scare tactic. It's a mirror held up to the predator within us all, and the thin line between humanity and hunger. Before the Murray River carved its path through New South Wales, before the red gums stretched their roots toward the water, the land lay flattened beneath the belly of the Yowie, a monster so vast its shadow could darken an entire valley for days. Imagine a lizard grown to nightmare proportions, its 6 muscular legs churning the earth like plows, its forked tongue flicking out to taste the air for prey. This wasn't just some oversized reptile, it was a force of pure consumption, a being whose hunger shaped the landscape itself. According to the Wiradjuri and Ungjiampa peoples, the Yowie's legend isn't merely a cautionary tale, it's the reason the earth buckles and dips the way it does, why certain valleys seem half-eaten, and why the rivers follow such twisting paths. The creature's appetite defied reason. It didn't hunt, it devoured. Whole camps vanished overnight, leaving only drag marks leading to its lair near what's now Deniliquin. Kangaroo mobs, emu flocks, even towering gum trees disappeared into its maw, its belly distending like a rotten fruit yet never filling. Elders say the Yowie's hunger was so relentless it gnawed at the very bones of the earth, leaving scars that became gorges and gullies. But what makes this legend truly unsettling are the details: how its 6 clawed feet left circular pits that filled with rainwater, creating the region's first natural wells, or how its thrashing tail carved channels that later guided the Murray's flow. The land wasn't just its hunting ground, it was its unfinished meal. Its downfall came not through strength but cunning. Tired of fleeing, the people turned to the cleverness of the wedge-tailed eagle, who'd observed the Yowie's one weakness: it always slept facing east as if awaiting some unseen threat. One night, as the monster dozed, elders lit massive fires to the west, heating boulders until they glowed. When the Yowie awoke to the scent of smoke, it instinctively turned toward the flames, exposing its soft underbelly to the scorched stones. The searing pain sent it flailing backward, its weight collapsing the earth beneath it, drowning in the very mud its own claws had churned. Today, the evidence of its reign lingers. The Yowie's death throes supposedly formed the curves of the Murray-Darling Basin, its final breaths filling the air with humidity that still clings to the riverbanks in summer. Those six-legged tracks, they're said to survive as the circular lagoons dotting the region, their depths oddly still, as if something below remembers how to hunger. Modern geologists might attribute the terrain to erosion or glacial shifts, but Wiradjuri guides will point to a particular bend in the river and say, "Here's where its tail lashed," or show you a valley and murmur, "This was its last bite." The Yowie's legacy isn't just about a monster defeated, it's a lesson in reading the land as a living story. Every dent in the earth becomes a syllable in an older language, every waterhole a punctuation mark in a tale that predates time. Next time you stand by the Murray, listen closely. The way the current swirls around certain rocks, the way the cliffs lean like they're recoiling, these aren't accidents of nature. They're the echoes of an ancient feast interrupted, reminders that even the hungriest shadows can be outwitted by those who know how to watch, wait, and strike when the world turns just so. The Nargun doesn't knock. It arrives as a whisper in the wind, a shadow flickering at the edge of vision when a woman yearns for a child the earth refuses to give. Among the Ungaranian and Warora peoples of the Kimberley, this spirit isn't feared as a monster but revered as a last resort, a being who cradles the desperate in one hand while the other holds a scale. Its offer is simple, its terms devastating. It will seed life where none grows, but when the child reaches adulthood, the spirit returns to collect its due. Some say it takes the child's voice, leaving them eternally mute. Others claim it steals their shadow, dooming them to wander unseen. The darkest versions insist the child themselves vanishes, returned to the spirit world as payment for the miracle of their birth. Unlike Western tales of demonic bargains, the Nargun's legend carries no clear villainy. It doesn't trick or deceive, its terms are stated plainly, and Aboriginal lore is rich with accounts of parents who accepted them willingly, their love outweighing the future cost. This creates a haunting ethical tension absent from most Dreamtime stories. The Rainbow Serpent shapes the land, the Bunyip guards waters, but the Nargun forces a choice. Is it worse to let a lineage die, or to gift it life knowing that life carries an expiration date? Elders recount how these decisions fractured communities, with some clans embracing Nargun children as blessed and others shunning them as walking deaths. What chills the blood isn't the spirit's cruelty, but its fairness. It never demands more than promised, never cheats the contract. In one recorded account from the early 20th century, a mother who tried to hide her daughter's coming-of-age ceremony woke to find the girl's hair woven into intricate patterns only spirits could braid, a receipt, not a threat. The Nargun's precision makes its deals feel less like horror and more like natural law, as inevitable as tides or seasons. Anthropologists note parallels to other global, changeling myths, but the Nargun stands apart by being neither punitive nor random. It operates on a brutal economy where life and loss are irrevocably balanced. The legend's power lingers in modern dilemmas. Fertility clinics might replace spirit pacts, but the core question remains: how much future uncertainty should parents bear for present longing? Contemporary artists depict the Nargun as a figure cloaked in baby teeth and umbilical cords, its scales weighing ultrasound images against empty cradles. Counselors in Indigenous communities sometimes reference the story when mediating intergenerational trauma, framing it as a metaphor for the costs ancestors unknowingly passed down. Yet the most profound truth lies in how these children, those who survived, were said to walk between worlds. Some became renowned healers, their missing shadows allowing them to see spirits. Others composed songs so beautiful they made the wind pause, as if the Nargun had taken their speech but given back something rarer. The legend doesn't judge these choices. It simply asks, as all great myths do, whether we can bear the weight of our deepest wishes once they come true. In the sun-scorched badlands of Central Australia, where the desert stretches endlessly and the air shimmers with heat, parents warn their children never to wander alone, especially when the wind carries an odd, greasy scent like rotting fatty meat. That's when the Pankalangu hunts. This grotesque, ogre-like figure from the Pitjantjatjara and Warlpiri traditions isn't just some abstract boogeyman. Towering over 10 feet tall with swollen bellies stretched from countless meals, matted hair crusted with clay and blood, and jagged teeth permanently stained red, these creatures embody every parent's worst nightmare. But the terror they inspire isn't random, it's meticulously calculated, woven into the fabric of tribal law as a way to enforce boundaries, protect sacred knowledge, and keep the vulnerable close. What makes the Pankalangu uniquely chilling is how it operates. Unlike spirits that haunt or curse, this monster has one singular craving: the flesh of disobedient children. Legends describe it lurking near waterholes at dusk, mimicking the cries of lost infants to lure the curious. Some say it carries a hooked stick to snare ankles from behind spinifex bushes. Others claim it stuffs its victims into woven bags slung across its back, saving them for later like gruesome pantry items. But the most disturbing accounts involve how it prepares its meals, breaking bones to fit more bodies into its cooking pit, or dangling children upside down to drain their blood like butchered game. Elders recount these details not for shock value, but as strategic horror, ensuring youngsters grasp the consequences of straying into forbidden zones or ignoring warnings. Yet there's a twisted logic to the Pankalangu's existence. In a desert environment where survival hinges on strict cooperation, these stories act as cultural guardrails. The monster's preferred hunting grounds, uncharted gullies, isolated rock shelters often coincide with actual dangers: quicksand pits, venomous snakes, or sites reserved for sacred men's business. By associating these places with the ogre's appetite, elders embed vital survival knowledge in unforgettable imagery. Anthropologists have documented cases where children who wandered into taboo territories later described seeing Pankalangu footprints or hearing its guttural breathing, a testament to how effectively the legend shapes behavior through visceral fear. The creature's influence extends beyond bedtime warnings. During initiations, elders don Pankalangu masks to dramatize the consequences of breaking tribal laws, their growls echoing as they abduct initiates for symbolic lessons. Modern artists depict the monster in acrylic paintings as a paradox, both a threat and a teacher, its bloodied hands cradling tiny figures who represent not just potential meals but the next generation's fragility. Even the way it's described varies deliberately. Some communities emphasize its bulging, milky eyes to symbolize spiritual blindness, while others focus on its distended belly as a warning against greed. Today, the Pankalangu's legacy persists in unexpected ways. Park rangers in Uluru Kotati Juta National Park report tourists who have fled certain canyons after hearing unexplained growls, only to learn later of the local lore. Child safety campaigns in remote communities sometimes invoke the creature to teach road awareness or stranger danger. But perhaps its most profound role is as a keeper of balance, a reminder that fear, when wisely wielded, can be as nurturing as love. After all, in a land where danger is as real as the red earth, sometimes it takes a monster to teach children how to stay alive. As the first hint of dawn streaks the eastern sky over Arnhem Land, a single star burns brighter than all others: Barnumber, the morning star. To the Yolngu people, this celestial beacon is far more than a ball of burning gas. It's a compassionate ferryman of souls, a cosmic bridge between the living and the dead, its faint pulse across the night sky mirroring the heartbeat of creation itself. Unlike the fearsome creatures and earth-shaping serpents of other Dreamtime legends, Barnumber's power lies in its quiet constancy, its light serving as both compass and comfort for those making the most profound crossing of all. The rituals surrounding Barnumber reveal a sophisticated understanding of astronomy woven into ceremony. Elders teach that the star, identified by astronomers as the planet Venus, dips below the horizon carrying the spirits of the recently deceased, guiding them safely to the afterlife in the land of the dead known as billabongs. But this journey isn't automatic, it requires careful preparation. During burial ceremonies, mourners attach feathered strings to ceremonial poles called larakich, their ends fluttering like celestial tethers. As Barnumber rises before sunrise, these strands are said to glow with an otherworldly light, forming a pathway for the soul to ascend. The precision is astonishing. These rituals align with Venus's 8-month cycle as morning star, ensuring the cosmic timing mirrors earthly farewells. What makes Barnumber's legend extraordinary is how it blends grief with wonder. When the star appears particularly bright, elders whisper that it's crowded with ancestors welcoming a new arrival. Navigators once used its position to time sea voyages across the treacherous waters of the Arafura Sea, trusting its light to reveal safe passages just as it revealed the way to billabongs. Even the star's evening appearance as Venus holds meaning. Some clans believe this is when Barnumber returns alone, having delivered its passengers safely, its dimmer glow symbolizing a job completed. Modern astronomers have uncovered eerie parallels between Yolngu knowledge and scientific observation. The feathered string symbolism finds resonance in the zodiacal light, a faint glow caused by cosmic dust along the plane of the solar system, visible only at dawn in Arnhem Land's latitudes. The star's path mirrors real celestial navigation markers used by Polynesians, suggesting ancient shared knowledge. Most remarkably, recent studies of Aboriginal songlines confirm that some routes align perfectly with Venus's extreme positions on the horizon, proof that these stories encoded precise astronomical data for millennia before telescopes existed. But Barnumber's true power lies beyond science. When a Yolngu elder passes away today, families still gather before sunrise, painting their cheeks with white clay to catch the star's glow. They sing the deceased's personal journey song, its rhythm timed to Barnumber's ascent, threading the gap between stars and earth. In a world where modern grief often feels isolating, this star offers something radical. The certainty that no one crosses over alone, that even in death, there exists a guide who's made this trip countless times before. As the last legend in our journey through the Dreamtime, Barnumber leaves us not with fear or moral lesson, but with something far more rare, a sense of gentle order. The universe, these stories say, isn't indifferent, it keeps accounts, it remembers, and when our time comes, there will always be a light waiting, patient as dawn, to show us home. From towering serpents carving rivers to celestial spirits guiding the departed, these 25 Dreamtime legends reveal a tapestry of storytelling as vast and intricate as the Australian landscape itself. What unites them isn't just their ancient origins, it's the way they pulse with life, weaving together creation, morality, and humanity's fragile dance with nature. Think about it, the Rainbow Serpent doesn't just explain landforms, it teaches respect for waterways that sustain life. The Kaditcha man isn't merely a bogeyman, he's a living legal system, enforcing tribal law through the sheer power of belief. Even the monstrous Yowie, with its endless hunger, becomes a geological architect, shaping valleys and rivers through its ravenous path. These aren't fairy tales. They're survival manuals, philosophical treatises, and environmental warnings encoded in narrative form. Every legend here shares a profound truth. The land is alive, and we're part of its story, not its owners. The Jangawal sisters didn't just create sacred sites, they embedded cultural knowledge in the very soil. Barnumber's starry path isn't just poetry, it's a celestial GPS for grieving souls. And when the Mokoi's curses mirror real-world illnesses or the Pankalangu's hunting grounds overlap with actual danger zones, it's clear these stories were never meant to be passive entertainment. They're mirrors held up to nature's laws, reflecting consequences for greed, disrespect, or broken balance. But here's the most beautiful part: these legends refuse to stay trapped in the past. Modern protesters paint the Rainbow Serpent on anti-fracking banners. Urban artists reimagine the Yara-ma-yha-who as a metaphor for addiction. Scientists marvel at how Julungul's diamond scales align with freshwater mussel ecology. The Dreamtime isn't a closed chapter, it's a living dialogue, constantly adapting to teach new generations how to navigate an ever-changing world. So what's your story? Every culture carries its own legends, tales that explain the stars, warn against hubris, or celebrate the bonds between humans and Earth. Maybe you grew up with Slavic house spirits, West African Anansi tales, or Norse frost giants. Whatever myth shaped your understanding of the world, they're part of this same universal human impulse to make sense of life's mysteries through story. Drop your favorites in the comments. Let's build a global tapestry of legends as rich and diverse as the Dreamtime itself. Because in the end, that's what these stories remind us. We're all just passing through a world far older and wiser than we'll ever be. And the best tales are the ones that help us walk through it with a little more reverence, a little more wonder.